You're listening to Little Rockers Radio. Thanks for joining us today. Now, we're talking to author of a brand new book called Simple Dog Care, 7 Steps to a Healthy and Happy Dog. Lerida Grant is joining us to talk all things dog care and also dogs and families. Hi, Lerida. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today, Sarah?
I'm really well, thank you. Now, I was reading your book and I was absolutely flabbergasted to read that Australians spend $16 million a day on caring for pets. That is a huge figure.
It is, I know. And whenever I tell people, and in fact, I must say it's on the low side when I pulled out a conservative figure, people are absolutely flabbergasted. But when they start doing the sums in their own heads, they go, we do spend a lot on our pets because that figure actually doesn't just include food. It includes vet visits, insurance, the whole kit and caboodle.
Now, I wanted to start off by asking, if we've got a family that already has a couple of young children, what are some of the best ways that they can go about introducing a dog to their home?
The first thing I'd like to say, I couldn't recommend more highly than to have a dog in the home because it really does make a family complete. I'm a little biased, perhaps. But, if you're bringing a new dog into the home when you've got, young or sort of primary school age kids, it's really important to be prepared. So, letting the kids know that the dog's coming, depending on their age, you might want to limit that time frame so you don't get pestered all the time. Making sure that they're aware that when the dog comes, it's going to be nervous because it's all new for the dog. And whether that's a puppy or whether it's an adult dog or rescue, it's really important that the kids understand that there's going to be some rules and boundaries around the dog. It's not just a plaything. It's actually another, I want to say human, but it's another species. This is also where the family has to start thinking about the boundaries for the dog because the dog is actually going to come into the home very nervous and it will need to know where its own space is and what the boundaries are very early on. So those boundaries are, around where it can go in the house, whether it can jump up on the lounge or not. And the kids have to be involved and understand that everyone in the whole household needs to, comply to the same rules. So, getting the kids involved early and briefing them is really important. But the most important thing, of course, is, on Bring Home Dog Day, what should they be doing? So, once again, if preparation is done beforehand, a little, family meetings, etc., that sort of sets the scene. Once again, I can't, stress enough, calm, which is tricky. I mean, everyone's excited when they have a new dog, and kids, of course, will be terribly excited, but they need to understand that they shouldn't react, make too much noise, try and be very respectful and quiet around the dog. And then a process that I believe, I've got to say my kids were 6 and 4 when we brought our dog home, so they were just that bit older. But, I've spoken to Dr. Joanne, who's one of the co-authors of my book, and she recommends that the kids all sort of, sit on the lounge or, a space where the dog's going to be allowed to be, bring the dog in, and each child have like a little treat in their hand, which is, hidden.
Yes.
And each child call the dog one by one to let the dog come to them, give them the treat, and then they can get to pat the dog. And this is where it's quite important that kids understand the right way to pat a dog. So the kids have to understand that, there's certain parts of the dog and certain actions which make the dog nervous. So firstly, hugging, up front, absolutely no hugging at all, as hard as that will be, because I'm sure everyone will want to hug the dog or the puppy. Later down the track, when things have been sort of sorted, perhaps, depending on the dog, but, absolutely no hugging up front. Making sure the kid's face doesn't get near the dog, and that should be a rule of thumb all the time. But patting only on the head, on the top of the head, under the chin, along the back, and of course after they get the treat, let the dog smell their hand, and the hand being in a fist, so the dog can just smell very calmly, so they get the scent of the child. And then after they've all met the dog, get the kids to go and do something else while the dog sort of has a bit of downtime, and the dog gets to understand that actually everyone else has another life as well. It's not just about the dog. So, hopefully those sorts of introductions will at least set the sort of scene for a calm sort of ongoing relationship. And look, I could talk for hours about what happens next, but I won't, because that's not the purpose of this chat.
You do raise a really good point, though, because quite often we'll talk to our husbands or our partners about getting a dog, the type of dog, and then we go out and get it and we bring it home to a house that's completely full of excitement. But sitting the children down first and talking to them about it, obviously if the children are old enough, and about setting the expectations is a really good idea.
Yeah, and also talking to the kids about what are the boundaries going to be, because then they'll also get the message that boundaries, A, are important, and secondly, that everyone has boundaries. It's not just them, it's not just the dog, it's the whole family. So it gets their mindset around that as well. If you're a very brave mother, you might want to even start talking about, roles and responsibilities. Who's going to feed the dog, who's going to water the dog, who's going to be involved with the walking of the dog. And the reason I say brave mother is, of course, let's face the facts. After month 1, guess who's going to be doing all the work?
Oh, you are so right. I've just divided the chores up with my children who are 8 and 10. So my daughter has to clean out the bird water and feed the bird, and my son has to feed the dog and the cat. And they were so excited when we first divvied up the chores. They couldn't wait to do it. They were doing it every day. They loved doing it. Now we're about 3 months in, and it is literally a massive chore for them. But I'm trying to stay on top of it. Now, just to switch it a little bit, what about couples who already have a dog in the house but are expecting a baby? How can they introduce the baby to their dog?
Look, that's a great question, because, of course, the dog sees itself as the only child. And once again, preparation is the key. Making sure that the dog gets used to the fact that there's going to be certain parts of the house that are off limits. So, usually you set up a nursery or a baby's room, or even if the cot's in your own room, making that a no-go zone for the dog from before the baby comes, so that it's used to it already. So, if it's a first baby, you're going to have to invest in the toddler, the gates anyway. So get them, mark off the room where you don't want the dog to go, room or rooms. Getting the dog used to even smell. So if you're going to sort of set up the nursery with all, the baby powder and all that sort of thing, you can actually open them and sort of, leave them lying around a bit so the dog can get used to the smells. I actually listened to a great podcast that Dr. Jo gave on this subject, and she said, look, it might sound wacky, but carrying a doll around or something wrapped in a blanket so that the dog actually starts getting used to you carrying something else around and not always focusing on the dog is actually a good idea. And she said, I know it sounds wacky, but that can really work. Once again, it might sound wacky, but if you've got access to, I shouldn't say access to baby sounds, but I'm sure there must be some on the internet, or getting friends over with a baby just to start setting up the dog's experience so it's not as stressed when all this new stuff happens, because there will be a lot of change in the dog's life, and you want to try and just minimise that as much as possible. Yeah. And of course, actually, particularly with babies, but also with young kids, absolutely never, ever, ever leave them alone. You just can't do it. You can never leave the dog and a young child or baby together without being supervised.
Yeah, and that's the number one rule, isn't it? Like, it doesn't matter how well you know the dog, how good the dog is with children, how big or how small the dog is, you can never really leave them alone with children. Now, your book outlines the 7 steps to a happy, healthy dog. Tell us, what are the 7 steps?
Well, the first is pretty well the same as what it is with humans, which is health. The basis of health is nutrition. Healthy eating is absolutely step number 1. The next step is protection against parasites. And a lot of people think this is just around, fleas and ticks. But it's really important to protect a dog, particularly if you've got young kids in the house, against worms and the internal parasites, because they can easily get passed around the family. The third step is exercise. Great for the dog, but great for you as well.
Yes.
The fourth is dental care. Now, so many people overlook this, and I've got to put my hand up and say guilty because I had no idea how important it was to look after my dog's teeth. As a result, our poor dog now has quite a lot less teeth than it should, and we've got a lot more expenses as a result. So dental care from sort of day one is really important, and in the book I outline a lot of different ways you can do that. The fifth step is behaviour and training, just like with kids, setting boundaries, making sure the dog understands, what's on and what's not on is really important, and it gives less stress for the dog. The sixth one is grooming. And when I say grooming, it's not around sort of being all fluffed and buffed, ready for a show. It's about basic hygiene, once again, so important with a child in the house or children in the household. And the last, which is probably almost the most important but underlies everything, is regular vet care. Having a good relationship with your vet, particularly when you bring a new dog home, setting up routines around going to the vet. When they're puppies, of course, they have, a number of visits. But when they're adults, it only needs to be once a year. But the regular visits are really important. So the vet does know your dog and your dog knows the vet and can start to detect any possible issues as they get into their senior years. Once they're in their senior years, they need to go, probably at least twice a year. So, just like us humans, we need our regular checkups too.
And the book does go into such great detail. It's a fabulous resource for pet owners or people looking to get a dog. Where can people get the book?
Well, the book can be bought in a few ways. You can go into bookstores, and I know that Dimics are getting the book in this week. You can also buy it online from my website or from my Facebook page, Lerida, Lerida, Grant, Grant, author. So, it's an author page, and on there is a couple of links, and you can actually buy the book, or you can actually buy an e-book, and that's available through Amazon and Kobo and a number of other places. It's all on the Facebook page. But the main thing is that I personally would highly recommend you actually have a hard copy, because we have an index at the back, so you can always just flick back quite easily to see if you've got different issues.
And I'll have all of those links on our website too at www.littlerockersradio.com.au. Now, just quickly before we go, some common problems with dogs and families.
Oh, look, we joked about it before, but roles and responsibilities. So what I've actually done in the book is as I've just outlined, we've got 7 steps, but each step's broken into 2 parts. Part 1 is around getting to know the facts, and that's all about empowering the family and the dog carers to make the right decisions and not be confused because they've got the facts. But the second part is around getting organised and getting help. And this is what, as a mother and a dog owner, I'm hoping to really sort of give some value to people's lives, because it's great to be told what you need to do, but how to do it is often rare to find. So that section really talks about, how to get help, how you can brief, say if you're getting a dog walker because you're bringing a new baby into the home, how to brief the dog walker, different online resources you can go to, how you can automate, lots of the different things. So, hopefully this really adds a bit more information to, a family's experience of owning a dog, rather than just going, oh my goodness, there's so much involved.
Yeah, you're so right. And what I should have done when we got our dog was write up a contract with my husband that he always picks up the dog poo, because that literally never happens now.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, no, you're right.
Now, thank you again for joining us today, Lerida. The book is a fabulous resource for people who are looking to get dogs or have dogs. Thanks so much for joining us today, Lerida.
Oh, it was lovely chatting, and lovely to talk to you too, Sarah.
That was Lerida Grant, the author of Simple Dog Care, 7 Steps to a Healthy and Happy Dog, on Little Rockers Radio. Thanks for listening.